I really wanted to come. There are so few members of the clergy that have made such a difference in my life as the man we're here to tribute tonight. On television and in broadcast, Father, outside of his work at the parish, leads millions of people back to truth and light at a time when it is under such attack, and we all need a little extra light and clarity, so thank you for that, Father. Early on, I realized that Father and I have an affinity for that great holy man of word and letters, Rodney Dangerfield. And so in between takes, he's turning red because he knows this is true. In between takes, just to keep the energy up, or when I see Father starting to nod off, I will do Rodney Dangerfield for him. And we'll, I'll say, okay, Father, we've got another 5 minutes, so we're waiting for this thing to pass. And Bob is very meticulously making notes and going through the books. And, Father already knows this stuff, so he's going to sleep. And I'm just trying to keep the energy going because I got a show to do. And that's when I'll say something like, I was ugly. Oh, was I ugly? I was so ugly I'd play with a cat. He kept burying me. That's how ugly I was. When I was born, they hit my mother. I'd like to invite up to the podium a dear friend, editor-in-chief of The Catholic Thing and another bright light in this dark age, Robert Royal. Robert?
Well, have pity on the person who has to follow Raymond Arroyo to the podium. I'm delighted to be here myself. I think that this organization, first of all, is wonderful. And insofar as my word has any weight with this audience, I urge you to dig deep and to help support this very worthy cause, in addition to our honoring of our dear friend, Father Murray, this evening. When we first started to plan this, he said, oh, Bob, you got to talk to them and explain. We don't want a lot of those long speeches, maybe we can do kind of a posse segment, which we are going to do in a minute. We actually started out as 4. I see Father Roger Landry. And back then, we were the conclave crew. So the 4 of us met in Rome a few days before the conclave was going to begin, and we began to think through some things. And then we had our first live show one evening. After Father Landry, who's now at the Holy See Mission at the UN, we were down to 3. And one day we were doing, I don't think many people know this history, Raymond. We were doing a live show from the studio. We tape a lot, but we used to also do a lot of live shows. And we were there, and Raymond says, it's a little bit too late now for us to call ourselves the conclave crew. Henceforth we shall be the Papal Posse. Father Murray and I both went, what are you going to do on live EWTN? Say, Raymond, no, sorry, we'll see you. This is positively too much. But we were the posse from that moment. And ever since then, whenever I go on with these 2 men, I get notes from people after the fact saying, you know what? You're a liberal. You're always making excuses for those people over in Rome. You're explaining things. What are you doing? We like that Father Murray. He tells it like it is. Father Murray is a great colleague, a great friend, a great human being, and a great priest. And a great gentleman, I would say, too. So it's been my pleasure, my honor to know him, and I'm happy to be part of this honoring this great friend and priest tonight.
Now, this is the ultimate sing for your supper, I think this is what this portion is called. I was not told about this until I landed at 3:30 a.m. from New Orleans last night. Raymond, and tomorrow you all are going to do a Papal Posse segment as part of the dinner. I said, guys, no, don't applaud. This is going to be ugly because we haven't planned very much. So, Father, sit. While I was listening to Bob, I thought, do you remember when Father Jerry started? And like Father Landry, they were both so reserved.
They gave us what the church taught, but there was an air of reserve, and that's what the catechism teaches, Raymond. They were holding back the fire. After a few years, Jerry Murray has turned into like the machine gun Eddie here. He's unloading all over the room, and I sit back and now I go, now Father Jerry, let's be very... So I'm moving to the left with you, Bob.
That's right.
Anyway, some questions.
Don't stay there too long.
I won't, don't worry. I'm in the middle.
Okay.
You all had a question, and it was serious. Amidst all the present controversy that exists in the church, can you speak about what you see as signs of hope in the church today? Robert Royal. Hope is all around you, Rob.
Yes, I see. I'm the
Christmas.
patsy, and then Father Murray comes in for the kill afterwards.
Yes. Well, I'm giving him time to think. That's why they think he's smarter than you. That's why. No. We love you.
Yes, I know.
Go ahead. I gave you first crack. You get the best jokes off.
Look, there are always signs of hope in the church. Look at the number of people in this room. You know, there's a saying that they have in Italian, siamo pochi ma buoni. There are few of us, but we're good. As Benedict says, creative minorities are the people who drive what happens in the world. Hollywood drives a lot of what happens in our culture. People in this room and people involved in many other activities, dare I say the Catholic Thing, which has 40,000 subscribers, and writers like Father Murray and Brad Miner and other people in the room here. Look, we're way down in a cultural hole. I would not try to be Pollyannish about this. We're living out right now a culture that has cut its roots with Christianity, and what happens in a world that cuts its roots with Christianity is the nuttiness that we see. The gender ideology that the Pope has denounced many times. Many other things that are very troubling about our society. We don't know if our society will survive. But you know what? We belong to a church that survived the persecution of the Roman Empire, the fall of the Roman Empire, the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, entire cultures and civilizations failing. But in a very concrete way, we all do what we're going to do. And everywhere I go in the country, everywhere I go even outside the country, there are points of light. And I don't say it's going to be happy. I don't think it's going to happen fast. It may not happen in the lifetime of anybody in this room. But God has overcome the world. And that light never goes away, and we see it in all sorts of different places.
Father Murray.
Sir.
From someone in the room. What can we expect from the special synod the Pope has called in February? And why did he stop the American bishops from taking action this past fall? Father Murray.
Okay, well, very tough questions. Let me just say, though, before, to thank Bob for his beautiful introduction. And I'll quote my dear friend, Father Rutler. Father Rutler once said to someone who introduced him, "Thank you for calling attention to my humility. That way I didn't have to do it myself." We live in a world where humor really is the keynote of a Christian spirit, and I can say that amidst trials and tribulations, we have the most fun, you know, and that really, sometimes people think priests are unhappy. I remember once when I was studying in Rome, I went up to Florence for a day trip with Monsignor Brown, now Archbishop Brown, and another priest, Monsignor Fucinaro. And we went to an ice cream store after lunch, which is gelateria, beautiful. So the three priests are there. We're dressed in our Roman collars, as always. And the clerk says to us, "Can you marry?" And we said, "No, we're priests, we can't marry." His next line was, "Enjoy your ice cream." So people have an idea, priests aren't happy and they need something, you know, to keep themselves smiling. I can say one of the great signs of hope, I'll steal the answer from you, is
I didn't ask you that question. I asked you about the Synod in Rome in February.
Wait a minute.
You are dodging.
didn't you get training at Fox News?
Yes, that's why I'm doing the
Wait,
follow-up.
no, the training is the host asks the question, the guest says whatever he wants.
Asman, put the arsenic in his drink
And
now.
yeah, by the way, speaking of Fox News, I want to say they are very smart in hiring you and wish you all the best. But don't lose your audience. EWTN, that's one of my greatest signs of hope. Nobody worries about what a lot of people say. A lot of people worry about what Raymond Arroyo and the Posse say.
Awesome. You all.
Posse. Anyway, back to the serious questions. You know, I've noticed over the years, most news reporting considers telling us what happened and then trying to predict the future. And based on what has happened, that we often get an indication of what's happening in the future. The meeting in Rome had a purpose independent of what happened in Washington. The meeting in Rome was to talk about the unfortunate phenomenon of criminal behavior by priests concerning young people. But the Washington meeting was about calling for accountability by the hierarchy and addressing the fact that we have a system now which has allowed, hard to believe, after the year 2002, people in important places not to be punished and actually to continue in positions of authority. So that problem will not go away, and I have a feeling it's going to be part of the discussion. So I'm not too worried about what's going to hit the airwaves after that meeting. The next question is, do we have any practical steps? And people pay attention in the United States, so there's no doubt about it. Bob Royal was in Rome during the Synod, and it's very clear that what happened in the U.S. preoccupies, for good or bad, the people in Rome. So when you pay attention, that means we can communicate a message, and I think that's what we're going to do.
Okay. And being now at Fox, I'm not going to do the follow-up and ask you why the Pope killed the American bishop's response in November. I won't ask you that.
Won't ask it.
I won't ask you
But
that.
my father, lawyer, said if they don't ask a question, don't answer.
Of course. Should we take this on the road? We really could go on the road, and I could get a band, we could do some songs, maybe a Christmas tour. Final question. What should the laity do at this moment in church history, at this moment of confusion and such rancor?
Yeah, I'm asked this question a lot. Everywhere I go, people say to me, okay, you've laid out what's going on in the world. Tell us what we can do. I mean, even to the point that people say, you said, express your opinions to your bishop and your pope, but you didn't give me the address or the email of the pope that I could send this to. I have more faith in my readers than that. I think they can do it. You can't specify this stuff ahead of time. What we all have to do, I think, is see where we can lend a hand, push ahead our parish or our diocese or our nation. There are one of the adventures, I would say, of being a Christian is there are no established paths that we absolutely trod from one generation to the next. That although our principles and our beliefs are the same, we have an opportunity to be creative in responding to the particular challenges that exist in our time. And, you know, some of the old American Protestants used to talk about, blessed be the Lord who matched us with this time. And I know this isn't an occasion for getting too serious, but I think we ought to take that very seriously. That whatever little ways it may seem that we're doing these things, you never know. A lot of people say no one knew that the Soviet Union was going to collapse when it did. But John Paul II believed that it could happen. Ronald Reagan believed that it could happen. Margaret Thatcher believed that it could happen. So we stay at it. We don't despair, because that's what the devil wants. We hold close to our Catholic faith. We pray more. We fast more. We give alms more. These are the tried and true ways. I'm not a priest, so I can't prescribe, you know, your personal spiritual life, but it seems just to me that A church that has the deepest, richest, longest existing cultural tradition in the world can deal with this insubstantial, postmodern, post-truth world that we find ourselves in. So let's bring what we've got to that situation, and I think we're going to be surprised what happens.
Very nice. For the last question before we go to a video, which you're going to find very interesting, and this comes from somebody in the crowd. Have you seen the Cher musical, and could you explain the evangelical qualities you found in the production, Father Jerry? Babe. We got you, babe.
You got me, babe. I think I'm spending too much time watching reruns of Eminem videos and other rappers. No, that's no. I have to say, Raymond, that I count on you as the cultural maven, because sometimes when we were doing those breaks in between coverage, you Broadway show tunes, you start breaking out in them.
They should do some of this now, shouldn't they?
No.
Not without a band.
Not
no.
without a band.
Oh, come on now, you guys.
But no, it's interesting.
Just one each.
Well, we got next
You
year.
paid nothing for this. You're eating dinner. That's it. That's the show. This is too much. Go ahead.
No, and actually, this is one of the interesting things. You know, American culture is dominant throughout the world. It drives the French crazy. You know,
The Vatican crazy, too,
and
apparently.
the British take credit because they launched us, but we do have a big influence. And, you know, back to what Bob's question, can I do that? Can I just run
go
you
ahead.
over here? The fact that people in the United States expect their priests to be holy and demand that their bishops be responsible is a shot in the arm for everybody in the church. So you know, the cynical view of life, which can overwhelm the political realm, that kind of thing, where words are said that have no meaning. In the Catholic Church, you know, Father Landry and Father Ruther will agree with me, I'm sure. I didn't become a priest that I could console people with falsehoods. You know, I didn't become a priest so I can tell people what they want to hear, so when they go home, they can say, there's no problem here, we're basically doing fine. When there's a problem, we say it. And that's one thing about the American laity. That's one reason I think, as a recent article said on the internet, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern has become a must-watch moment because people want to know the truth about what's going on.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have a little video for you. This is called Standing Strong, and it is about tonight's honoree, Father Jerry Murray. Watch.
Begin our program today. We're going to talk about current events, things in the news.
Faith at the forefront of today's events from a Catholic cultural perspective.
And I'm Father Gerald Murray. So what is this film about, and where did you get the inspiration to do it? And joining me is Joe Concha of The Hill, newspaper in Washington. Historical knowledge leading to action in the present. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
The visitor this evening is one of my students, Father Gerald Murray. He used to have black hair, too.
That's right. I was ordained in 1984, and I've been involved in pro-life things since I was a newly ordained priest. The pro-life movement is people who step out of anonymity and do something, including Joan Andrews, Joan Bell, now married to Chris, and they do a lot of different things, and they produce a lot of good.
Joining me now, Father Gerald Murray, pastor of the Holy Family Church in New York City, also a canon lawyer. He joins us from Rome. Father Murray, first let me get your thoughts on this day. This was a surprise for a lot of people.
I was surprised, and it was a wonderful surprise. I'm very impressed he chose the name Francis. St. Francis is probably the most beloved saint by both Catholics and non-Catholics. And when St. Francis received his revelation from Christ, the Lord told him, rebuild my church. And I think that's exactly what the new Pope will have as his mission, to rebuild the church. And by his example and by the name Francis, he's reminding us true joy in life does not come through wealth and riches. It comes from serving God and serving our neighbor. The first reaction of the New York Daily News to tell people God's not going to help you, God's not going to fix this. This is the insensitivity of those who assume atheism is self-evident. Love of neighbor is more powerful than hatred, and we have a duty to defend the innocent. Military spending is good when it defeats people like ISIS. Police work is good when it does what we need it to do. The General Sisi in Egypt, he knows darn right well, excuse me, what it is. That's why I'm getting a little upset, forgive me. Okay. We cannot live this secrecy and hiding. That is a horrible thing and needs to be rejected. The ends don't justify the means. The circumstances don't change the morality of a human act. The Pope is someone we respect and love, but on the other hand, as in any family, if you don't speak honestly to your parents, you're doing a disservice to them. We're supposed to say, Holy Father, can you explain to us how what you're saying now doesn't contradict what Pope John Paul II said? The Pope is not a man of the left. He is not someone who's out to undo Catholic doctrine. On the other hand, he is a figure like Mother Teresa who draws the world's attention because he goes to the areas where poor people are and brings the love of Christ. There will be surprises, but they're going to be in the direction, as he said, of bringing the gospel to the world in an effective way. And it's for everyone to get out there and say, Jesus is the answer to the question you have.
How wonderful that Good Counsel homes are honoring Father Gerald Murray, one of the great teachers of the faith in our time, using especially very effectively the various media to keep us on the steady course of the truths of the faith. God bless your celebration in a special way. God bless Father Murray.
Can't say much more, Father Jerry, but thank you very, very much for your witness. And Father Benedict would be very proud of you. I'm sure he is right now.
Thank you.
Thanks to Chris and to his crew, to Joan, their beautiful family, all those who work at Good Counsel. There is nothing more important in this country than saving human life, and that's what Chris Bell does day in, day out. Father Groeschel was a very smart man, and he recognized that Chris Bell was uniquely gifted for doing that work. So thank you so much, Chris. Father Groeschel had that gift of understanding what it means to be a priest. He trained many, many seminarians. He spent a lot of time giving us pastoral counseling classes. And, you know, there's a tendency to over-psychologize religion, you know, to make it basically, how can I console and comfort you so you don't feel bad anymore? And Father Benedict rejected that. He basically said people with difficulties do need to encounter Christ, and then how do you do that in an effective way, which involves gentleness, listening, patience, all the things that we associate with compassion. So he did a great job at that, and I want to thank him for training me and so many priests. My mom is here. I'm so grateful. She raised 3 children flawlessly. And she is an ardent defender of the right to life. She used to say to me, I want to give money to the Good Counsel home because I know Father Benedict is doing the right thing. I will, though, share a word that she said to me once when I annoyed her. She said, Jerry, the world got along fine before you arrived, and it will get along fine after you leave. And I only bring that up because that's real humility, to realize I'm not here to boast myself and say I'm God's gift to the world. God's gift to the world is Jesus Christ. As well as we serve him, that's how effective we'll be. With my mom and my sister here, Catholicism is transferred by generation to generation through the example of those who raise their children to love the Lord. And that, my mother was trained by the Sacred Heart Sisters, Sacred Heart nuns. They really instilled in her love of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. We got that in our home. I know my sister's carrying on that tradition, and I know you do too around here. So, you know, what can I say? I'll end by saying, thank God I was born into a Catholic family. Thank God they taught me the truths of the faith. Thank God, I'll say it, my dad was a National Review reader from the beginning. And the reason I say that is you get used to contradicting the current culture. And when the culture in the 60s turned against Christianity, we have to say no.
We're going to defend the truth, and we're going to keep smiling as we work to do God's work. So, with all that said, thank you.
I met Father Murray very early on. It was around 1988. Good Counsel had only been open a few years. And then we were both a little bit younger. Our hair was a little different. But his enthusiasm, his commitment, his clarity was there from that first moment before I met him, and it just continued. And to see him magnified as it is on TV and with just such a wider audience, it's heartening. Isn't it heartening and wonderful and encouraging? And when things get difficult, it's good to turn to you, Father Murray. Thank you for being here for us. Every one of you I certainly hold very deeply in my heart and in my prayers. Because of you, Good Counsel is able to say yes to every mother who calls, no matter what time of day, no matter what day, no matter where she's from, no matter how she got pregnant, no matter what her background is, no matter what her particular needs are. Leah came in a time of need. She has come very far. I would like her to share that story. I really cannot share the story of Good Counsel better than Leah Marquis.
I was at my lowest point in life. Some days I wish I wasn't even born. I didn't know if I wanted my baby anymore. I wanted to put her up for adoption when she was born. I was set on my decision of adoption, so I planned an appointment and went to an adoption agency and got a caseworker. I was trying to run from my own self-hate and mistakes I had made in my past. I wasn't that person anymore, and I was moving forward in life, and I didn't want my baby to be a reminder of who I was. I knew I was being selfish, but I didn't care at the time. I was trying to run from my past self. I couldn't seem to run fast enough, and I felt like I was being eaten alive with guilt. To seek advice and comfort, I would talk to my case manager, Tatiana, in her office. One morning I woke up and felt a peaceful feeling a new adoption wasn't right for me. While at Good Counsel, I was able to graduate high school and got my diploma. I was overcome with pride. I was proving to everyone I wasn't a failure. My due date was creeping closer, but I still had to get through the summer. I was offered an educational grant from Good Counsel to go to morning school to get my CNA license. It was a calling from God, I believe, telling me I better do it. I did not succeed a year ago, the first time I got the opportunity, but I knew in this place I would. In August, I was awarded with my CNA license. Time passed, and of course, not all days were perfect, but some days when I was feeling down, the staff were always there to lend an ear for advice and compassion. Some days I would sit and talk with staff like Miss Anissa, Miss Dominique, Miss Lynn, and Miss Felicia. By having conversations with them, I developed a great amount of trust. I knew I could always count on them and talk to if I needed emotional support in hard times. Things were getting better, and my relationship with my parents were improving. On September 6th, I gave birth to my beautiful daughter, Skylar. She is my heart and soul. I am the one she will be looking up to for guidance. The thought of a little one looking up to me for all the answers can seem a little scary, but that will not shake me. I have been through so much, and it was all for her. Looking back on it now seems so long ago, but it has only been over a year. I am so grateful and blessed for Good Counsel. It was a godsend. The people there changed me, and I'll never forget them. They are a second family to me. Living at Good Counsel taught me to have independence and more confidence within myself. I recently just transitioned back home and now live with my parents. I'll be attending community college in January to study to get my RN. My daughter is a blessing. I was crying for help, seeking in life, but she pulled me up. I no longer have regrets. I only look forward, focusing on the positive each day, thankful for where I am at now. I am not a statistic teen mom. I am more than that. My achievements will grow bigger and bigger. I will always be the best I can for my little girl.
Do remember this important work. There are so many mothers and children like her who rediscovered the beauty of their lives through this organization.